right, sorry. The alarm went off.
Being able to put the name of the note on top of the note or whatever, in my opinion, I don't think it's cheating. I think that it just helps them re-emphasize note learning.
Yeah.
And especially if you're pairing it. Now, if you were only doing that and you're not pairing it with any other tool, then that might be a problem. But if you're pairing it with like the acronyms like FACE and Every Good Boy Does Fine, and if you're pairing it with the visual cards that Miss Diane made for this curriculum and stuff like that, I think if you're doing all those things, that them writing in notes is not like, I just always tell them like, that's not a failure, especially because I have them do more note reading kind of starting around this point, you know, moving forward. I like pair note reading with the rest of Music Unlocked curriculum. And so I think in that place, I'm like, it's okay. You know, like we're going to be doing this for a while. You're going to be reading notes for a while. And so to start out with maybe needing the note above it is okay. So that's just
No, I agree.
my opinion. So I think it can be helpful depending on the student. And that way they're not so discouraged.
Yeah.
My brain just can't get it. It's like repetition.
Yeah.
You'll get it, you know?
Yeah, and to find even what you were talking about with the colors,
Yes.
if they're really attracted to those colors and those really are clicking,
Yes.
it can be helpful. And so you could find it and print it out, or
Definitely.
if you decide to print your own books, you can just do that, make that choice, you know? So.
I had a student that with the song Waterfall, she made a black and white copy, and with every key, she would color the 1, 4, and 5 and what the note was, because it helped her visually be able to play Waterfall without having to be like, wait, what's the 4 chord? What's the 5 chord in this key?
Yeah.
And so depending on the student, the colors are, for her, it was like really helpful versus other, you know, tools. That was the one she wanted. So
No shame.
yeah, totally.
I love it.
Cool. I think that's all.
Yeah. Ready?
I know.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Scale etude.
Okay. Etude. I say etude. I don't know.
I think it is etude.
I don't know.
I'm wrong.
like, I could be wrong.
I'm for sure wrong.
Etude. Yeah, I think it's etude. I could be
So the scale etude. If you have taken piano lessons before, to play your scales, you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and then you have to scoot your 3 underneath, and then it's gonna be just a full 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So
it's
and
1, 2, 3 cross. You go like this with your thumb and put it under.
right.
Besides F on the right hand.
Correct. Besides F. You go to 4.
Because yes,
You are correct.
that's right.
That's right, Tanya. Yeah.
Yeah, because a scale is the 8 notes. You've got the 3 plus 5, right?
Mhm.
So
So
only on the right hand.
only on the right
Yes,
hand.
only on the right hand. The
And
fingers
so
different for
this
both.
one doesn't have scales on the left hand.
Not
which-
yet. It does later in the book, like
Okay.
the full book. It does it like way later on.
Okay.
Did you know that? Yeah,
No,
there's like a
didn't know
page.
that.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that far.
Yeah. Way later on in the other book. Yeah.
Okay. So then, and what's really cool is it starts out super simple. You're just gonna teach them the right hand. 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5.
I just
1,
teach
2,
them the
3,
scale
4.
first. Yeah, that's all. They usually need a week just to kind of get accustomed to that fingering and that feel. Like
Yeah.
I don't even give them the full song the first week. I just give them that, and then I have them practice doing the chords. That's what I do.
Yeah. I had a girl get it almost
depends on the
all
person.
3 of them.
Yeah.
So it depends.
Yeah, it does.
You know how long they've been taking, because she's been taking for like 3 or 4 years, or
Oh, then yeah.
or like took
for
a
sure.
break, you know, and
Yeah.
then like came back.
Yeah.
I'm kind of amazed at like students that they can play. Maybe she took for a year or 2,
Yeah.
and then she took like a year or so break,
Yeah.
and now she's back, and so we picked up, and she's been picking up on the scale
Mm.
etude
Mm.
like so quickly, and it's
Awesome.
kind of blowing my mind.
Yeah, that's great.
But what was I gonna say about this? Oh yeah, when you do this, you play the 2, right? So it kind of bounces back so that they can play it over and over.
Right here, you cross with your 2.
Yeah.
So you actually go under C here,
Down
back to the
to
B.
the 7th note.
Right here. Okay.
Yeah. It just adds that extra little pretty flourish. I think at first I thought it was
Yeah. Well, if
and
no
to
one
go
would have
up to the
told
2.
you, yeah. Makes
Yeah.
sense that
I feel it. Yeah, I can't remember why. Yeah, because so
I can tell you why you know it's not though, Jody, is because this dash is a representation of cross.
Oh.
Whenever you have a dash, that tells you to cross.
Okay.
Cross. Yeah.
Cool.
Where is,
Yeah.
oh, that dash
These
between
little
the 1 and the
dashes.
3.
Yes, the dashes mean cross.
Yes.
And that actually, sometimes you'll find that in even note reading music. They'll have a dash in the fingering and it'll help you. It's not super common, but sometimes it'll like tell you, you know, cross here.
Yeah. And then, and we have the repeat sign, so they can do this, you know, multiple times, as Chelsea was just kind of showing the going up and down, where you're going to have them
It's
repeat
a way
it
to
twice.
repeat your scales ad nauseum without being so bored out of your mind, because you have some
Yeah.
fun, more interesting left hand
Yeah.
things going on, which is
Yeah.
cool.
And then, you can start what is it? Do you do it 2 octaves apart, where they're
I
like
don't.
this?
I have them start together, but I have them go down.
Go down.
Mhm.
I like that
That's my
better, too.
opinion.
Yeah.
But
Um,
it's whatever. You can do either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they are gonna run into each other if they're playing the
If they go up, right here, my hands are
it won't.
Right.
smashing.
Yeah, they're gonna
So you
smash.
can't-
So they have to go down to
Mhm.
the 4 and then up to the 5 and then back up to the 1.
Mhm.
So kind of.
I like them to learn something called counterpoint. That's the concept of a musical concept called counterpoint, and it's where your hands move in opposite directions.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for them to learn to start close and then move apart and then move back together. I like it. It's
Ah,
a subtle way to like
yeah.
introduce a feeling of counterpoint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
Totally. And then it just gets more complicated. So first they're playing the 5, 1, 2 in the left hand,
Mhm.
and then they're playing full out chords.
chord.
1, 4, 5.
Yep. It's
and
all
then
color. It's all very colorful on the scale too. Which if you have a student that's really locked into the colors, this will throw them off when you move to a different key.
Yeah.
You'll be like, now do this in G, and they're like, wait, but C is red, and all I'm looking at, all I see here is red, red, red. So you can
Yeah.
just copy it in black and white. It's an easy
Yeah.
solution. No, I've had to do it. I'm like, here's a black and white copy of the scale. You
Yeah,
can put it in any
that's
key now,
helpful.
and you won't be thrown off by red.
Yes.
But the right hand's not going off. The right hand's staying.
The
right
right hand
hand
does the same thing
hand-
every time.
Okay.
Well, yes, that's correct. Yes.
No, it doesn't
The right
move.
hand.
Yeah, like the right hand doesn't
It's
go
just
to
the
the F and
left
G.
is going different octaves.
Correct.
Mhm,
That's correct.
mhm.
And then it does a little rhythm thing with the left hand. Yeah. Which, it's crazy. This pattern in your left hand is actually a pattern throughout Music Unlocked. Because it's the same thing as when you did, yeah. Have you noticed that?
Oh, nice.
And then it comes back again in Canon. It's the same bum bum.
Yeah.
So she reintroduces that left hand rhythm pattern several points in the book.
It's a
which I
very
think is clever.
classic.
And it's just classic, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's clever the way that like comes back to make things feel less daunting. You're like, oh, that's, you know, it's our muscle memory, you know, that stores stuff like that. So it's like, oh, that doesn't feel as hard when I've done something similar before, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So,
And it's very cool how, again, it's just building on itself. That is like the theme of the curriculum.
yeah,
is like,
definitely.
let's start small and then we're going to make it a little bit more complicated and a little bit more until they're playing something that does sound more complicated. This little part, you want to play that?
The bottom.
The last part? Yeah. It's gonna take them really playing that slowly.
And recognizing where the notes line up.
Mhm.
I will sometimes circle
Yeah.
the number where your 1 comes in because it helps them visually be able to see it a little better. When there's like a ton of numbers and they're just like, you know, you just circle the 1 here and the 1 there.
Yeah. And it's cool because the left hand's not moving at first. Oh, and then it's starting to move, but just playing the chords. But now it's playing the more broken
Both the chord
chords.
and the rhythm, yeah. Mhm.
So, let's open up to the keys. We haven't looked
Yes.
at keys in a little bit.
Love
But
it.
this is where your keys are going to really come back
Yes.
into play. We'll kind of skip over the chord part and go to the scales. In the first, we didn't talk about arpeggio fun.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I'm like,
Okay.
sometimes I do great at that with students, sometimes I don't.
So in order to get everything even, so let's look at this brown page right here, scales right here. And one thing that was a little bit frustrating is that the color coded ones are only in the whites right here.
Yes.
And they're only in major. So these are only major scales up through F. And then, but there wasn't another color coded one.
There's not.
So if you flip over though, here we go. Boom, 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 boom.
There
They're
they
all
all
black and white.
are.
Okay, here are all of
And
your
this is
scales.
all the scales, not just the
Yeah.
majors or the whites. It's like the whites and blacks and minors of every key.
And that way they can see this is what a full scale
This is everything
looks like, and that can help them to improvise.
The amount of printing paper that I have to do is
right.
oh my god.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
this,
not that one.
Yeah.
Print it.
yeah, let me find the Google image that would work with this.
Next time, I know.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but so this will just save your skin.
Yeah. Definitely.
To have, these this reference and stuff like that for this, because then too they're gonna have to they'll have to figure out how to get to the different places. But what's helpful is this green right here. Okay,
That's awesome.
this green page has the C is the 1. It has the 4 is light green, and then the 5 is dark green. Okay, so same concept. You've got G, C, D. Like those are your green, light green, dark green. And so that can be like a huge reference for them. You might even want to have them like.
Why is the 4th a color, not the 3rd? Because a chord is the 3rd.
Oh yes. Well, this is talking about just a C chord.
Not an inversion. Is
It's
that
not-
what she's referring to?
No. You're asking about a scale.
Like this.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
I see.
So
1,
what?
3, and 5.
So this is assumed the 1, 3, and 5.
Yeah.
This C right here actually represents C, E, and G.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now this F here represents F, A, C. Okay. And then the G represents G, B, D. Okay. So then if I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna and I'm gonna play the C chord right here. That's what I'm playing right here. Now this is a D minor, and it's the 2 chord. Okay. And then the E minor is right here, and now I'm getting up to this major F right here. That's the 4, and then the 5,
Right.
and then the 6, and then the
Right.
flat 7, and then the back to the C again. So, and it says this how many sharps there are in each key, and then one thing that would be cool is if the relative minor was
Highlighted. in some way.
highlighted.
Yeah, I know.
because that's. But anyways,
Yeah.
that'll be
So dun to dun.
Da-da-da-da.
I didn't tell you to include this in here, but I
should
think this is
have.
so vital. So this is a page that you guys could have just as a resource. This changed my life when I started teaching this curriculum, and I'll tell you why. I had learned scales in every key, but I had never conceptually understood that a full scale is just 2 pentascales put together. So a C scale is just C, and then once you get to the note G, you follow the G pentascale,
Okay.
and then you just go up to C.
Yeah.
So essentially what you're doing with any full scale is you're just combining 2 pentascales. Now let me tell you why this is so vital for this curriculum. Is because they know their pentascales.
Yeah.
Backward and forward.
Yeah.
So learning their full scale won't be difficult if you explain it in this manner.
Whoa.
Especially when you go to like something like B. And you're like, okay, a B full scale, you know the pentascale. When you get up to F sharp, that's the 5th, play an F sharp pentascale. But stop at B. And then they know what notes, these mysterious notes they haven't known. Because they've known up to 5, but they don't know 6 or 7. The mysterious notes are suddenly not mysterious at all. Because you just combine it with the F sharp.
I would have never guessed that.
This literally, I was like so excited about this, and I still am. So if this is helpful for you as a teacher to look at, I know it was for me, and then I think it can be very, very helpful for most students. Once this concept clicks for them, then they can play any of their scales pretty fluently, because they can think in their head about, oh, I'm an A, and then the 5th is E, and now I know the E pentascale has these notes. And that was an A scale. And I didn't really have to learn the notes or memorize the notes. I just put together 2 things I already knew.
That's
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I just wanted to like note that. The other thing I love about this page is it actually does have the tonic, dominant, relative minor,
Relative minor.
and the new sharp. Because when we go from around the circle of 5ths, we add a sharp with every key, which we talked about I know a couple times. Well, the sharp that we add is what's called the leading tone, or the 7th scale step. So it says new sharp, meaning C had no sharps, G had an F sharp, and it was the 7th one. D kept the F sharp, but then it added a C sharp. So it's always going to be added right here in this place. And then A kept the C sharp, kept the F sharp, added the G sharp. And then we've got 4 now, so we keep the F, G, C, and then we add D. Does that make sense? So the leading tone is
Why
helpful
would
for
it
them
be
to
that
understand.
simple?
I know, right?
It doesn't seem that simple.
I love it. It's really exciting. This page I don't use the whole time, but I will say it is nice for them to understand note reading, how a chord looks on the staff. Because when they begin to note read, if they can visually find, like Jody was just talking about, if they can visually find a chord, note reading is so much easier.
Yeah.
If they can understand skips versus steps, intervals, and chords, note reading is not hard. Like they'll be able to get it initially, like pretty quickly. And skips and steps are not in this book either. That's another thing I add. Like I'll write out a grand staff and I'll write, hey, is this note far or near the note before it? How far is it? What's the interval? Or is this just one step away or is it a skip away? You know, things like that.
Yeah.
So, but for scales, and then it's got the circle of fifths down here so you can understand what's happening up here. And I just think this chart, it also, you know, the 1, 4, and 5, this chart is just, it's great.
It's cool.
If you're going to teach scales, I think it's really helpful. So I wish this was in the, it's not actually in the express curriculum even. Well, it's not even in the express curriculum.
Yeah.
So I always pull it out.
What's the difference of the pentascale versus scale?
Right, so the number of notes, remember? Penta means 5.
And then
Whereas a full scale has
is
technically
10.
8 full notes, 7,
But
and then the 8th is a repetition of 1.
Yeah.
So pentascale would just go up to this 5th note normally. But then what you do is you combine the G pentascale with the C pentascale, and G is the overlapping note. So you have 5 here, and you have 4 because you don't go up to D. But the 5 plus the 4 equals the full
Cool.
scale. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
That's probably why the dominant helps you find the tonic.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
All these things that it's like, what?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
really exciting. So you can get this page on the Google Doc has this page if you ever want to find it, or I can
What's
point
it
it
in?
out to you. It's in the full book that's on there.
Okay, the
The
keys.
Keys full book. Yeah.
Not, it's like,
Not the express book, but
Not
it'll say
express,
the Keys full
but
book.
legitimate.
Yeah. So I can always point you to it if you can't find it. But
yeah.
so that scale etude, you do it in initially you do it in all of these keys right here, C through F. There is a specific page also, just a little note, in the full music book. There is a specific page for the F. You know that,
yeah,
right?
the F pentascale.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, well, that's exactly
The F
what Tanya was talking about. It goes
How
up
it
to
has a
the
different
4.
fingering, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a page
Which is 4
in
plus 4.
again on the documents where you can find that it has an actual F scale etude page, because that way, because if they read this one, or is it? It would be wrong because it says 1, 2, 3 cross, and so you need the one that says 1, 2, 3, 4 cross for F, just F.
Yeah.
It's the only one. So you can pull that up if it would be helpful. Some kids, again, it's very intuitive, and if you show them, they're fine. It's not a big deal, but depending, you know, on the kid.
Yeah, totally.
So
Might be something you could just individually print off for them or something.
that's what I'm
like that
saying.
if
Yeah,
they're
for
struggling.
sure. So they go through, through all these keys with scale etude. You can,
Well, and also this is kind of showing, the reason why I added this was actually to add just an extra page so that it would all work.
sure.
But I do like how it shows, like, this is C, the C, it goes to the G, and then it just kind of shows that
I do like that. Yeah.
circle of
That
fifth
circle of
there,
fifths, yeah.
and then it shows it in the full keys. So these are your pentascales that you have been learning, people, and now you're gonna do the full scale.
Yes.
So
I love it.
yeah,
That's
but
cool.
that page, I love that key.
Yeah, this is a good one.
I love it.
You can do the scale etude in any key theoretically, like not just the ones on this page or this page. You could theoretically play it in F sharp if you love F sharp. You could theoretically play it in A minor. In fact, when I do minor canon, I also do minor scale etude because there's a whole section of the other book where they learn all the minor scales, and we're not going to probably get into that today for time. But if in a future training, we may be able to train you on the minor scales because those are very different than the major scales, and you might not honestly be as familiar with them because it's not as commonly taught.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And not as commonly used, but still really cool and still good to know. So, and some of my favorite parts of the book are minor.
Amen. Amen. Okay.
Is Waterfall in? No, in the music.
Oh, it is. It's in the music.
Okay. So then Waterfall. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that one?
I probably am not as familiar with the concepts of waterfall.
Totally. So Waterfall pairs with Scale Etude because it also, just like Scale Etude has a 1, 4, and 5 chord right here. 1, 4, 5. Waterfall does the same thing. It has the 1, 4, and 5 chord.
So you see how the whole thing's color coded
and
yet
it's
again?
just, again, it's kind of
Oh,
doubling down on this. It's doubling down on the same concepts that you're learning in scale etude. It's doubling down on the scale, the notes in the scale, and it's doubling down on the chords in the whatever key you're in, the 1, 4, and 5 chord. But it's making this really, really pretty song for them to play.
Yes.
So Waterfall is such a fun one. Sorry. So that's where the key comes in. Because that note would typically be different, but when you're in a key signature, you have to follow the key. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, so it's fun. They can have so much fun with Waterfall, and it's so pretty.
Yeah.
So look at this little asterisk here.
Mm-hmm.
It says at the bottom, remember your scale. So the reason why is because, like Jody was just explaining a minute ago, and what I was just explaining a minute ago, is when you go to an F chord in C, the way that they've known F is by a pentascale, which included a B flat. But now we can't use B flat because C, the key of C, doesn't have a B flat. There's no sharps or flats in it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to play B, even though it sounds a little funky,
Yeah.
But it sounds cool.
right? Yeah, it sounds cool. So it's helping their ear get accustomed to what's called playing in a key signature. The way that I explain this to my students, a key signature is like a location that you go to and you have to stay there. You can't transport yourself quickly somewhere else. So like, let's say I went to Chipotle, I'm not gonna order Panda Express when I'm at Chipotle.
Yeah.
So like the key of C doesn't have a B flat.
Yeah.
It just isn't sold there. It doesn't exist there.
Yeah.
And so I like to give them this kind of visual of you have to stay within those specific notes. And they know the notes from that page in the keys that had the full scale. They know all the notes of the scale.
Yeah.
And so with Waterfall, just kind of like I said, it doubles down on understanding that concept of the one thing about
That's
Waterfall, this little special star down here, it's the only confusing part really of the song. I mean, I will say getting their fingers to kind of play all these notes at times feels intimidating to them, but once they get it, it's a pattern, meaning it does the same thing. Like lines 1 and 2 are the same thing, they're just on different, you start on a different chord. This is a C chord, this is an F chord, but you play all the same fingering. So they're familiar with that. We've done that the whole time. We're the pattern 1, we're the pattern 2, we were doing that forever. But I think what throws them off a little bit is this ending. So the 4 right here is blue because you stay on the G chord with your right hand while your left hand moves back to the C. But it's only for this one note. So I'm on G. Yeah. And it just goes. And then after I play that, I keep this hand where it's at, but I have to move my left hand separately. But then I move my right hand back down. So you'll have to try it yourself.
Where is that at?
It's right here. You'll have to try it yourself for that to make sense. But I just wanted to point that out, that the reason it's blue is because it's still part of G.
Okay.
And then you move your hand after you hit that 4th note. And it sounds really beautiful. So
Yeah.
it's kind of the climax. I think that's the climax of the song. That's why I musically made it the loudest part. So Waterfall, you can play in all the keys that you do scale etude in. What I do is I introduce scale etude in C, and I make sure they have that pretty solid over maybe a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Once that's solid, I introduce Waterfall in C, and then I have them play that for a week. And then what I start to do is I start to combine them, which is gonna feel maybe a little bit like a lot for them.
Yeah.
But the point is they're really supposed to be in tandem.
Okay.
Because what's complicated is when you start to do like scale etude in C and Waterfall in G.
Yeah.
And then, which in
That's
theory
gonna
it's like,
confuse them.
right, in theory it's like, oh, that's a good idea because then they're getting variance, but actually it doesn't help them solidify the chord, the scale. It kind of divides their brain. And so I found that it's actually better to kind of compound teach, meaning you do scale etude, Waterfall, pair them together in G. That's all you got this week, play them both in G. And just kind of master them in that key. And then once they come back and they've learned that, then we go to D. I'll teach you scale etude in D, and then Waterfall will be easy. You barely have to teach Waterfall. They kind of just get it if you've taught them the scale etude. And then you play that in D, and then you keep going to the different, whatever it is, the different keys, and doing them both at the same time. I also, we're not going to do this today, but I also bring canon into that. There's a You guys know the song Canon and D? It's like bum 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 bum.
Like the wedding
bum.
song.
Yeah, it's a wedding song. Exactly.
Yeah.
So she has this really cool rendition of that song that you can teach students that helps them again re-emphasizes the scale and the key signature and learning how to play in that with just a really fun song. And so I do all three together. So it'll be like all three in the same key, and then we move on to a different key and we do all three in the same key.
That's cool.
So
I like that.
Lily has done a little different, and I'm like, there can be variation, but I think I have found the best success is when you keep them in the same key and don't try to do two different scales at one time or two different waterfalls at one time, things like that. So,
Would you ever like give them a worship song that could have it in that same key too?
oh, 100%. Okay, so we haven't talked about worship yet, but I was going to start to talk about at some point, if that's where we're at, how we integrate.
The video, I think.
Yeah, that's probably a good
45
idea.
minutes, whatever.